Hello, I'm B.A. Paris, author of psychological thrillers, including Behind Closed Doors and The Therapist, and I'm here today to answer questions about my new book, The Prisoner, which is published on November 1st. The Prisoner tells the story of Amelie, a young woman who is kidnapped one night along with her husband Ned. And the story starts with the kidnap, and then we see Amelie in her darkened room and witness her day-to-day life there. And at the same time, Amelie is telling us her past story, and so we learn how she came to be imprisoned in this room. The second part of the book is Amelie trying to come to terms with what's happened to her and to try to get to the truth behind it. And I was inspired to write this book by Amelie coming to me fully formed, which was quite strange because normally I rely on something that has happened to me to give me the starting point for my story. So for example, the breakdown, I was travelling through a wood one evening in a storm and I thought that's a great start to a book. And for The Therapist, I just moved into this house here and I thought about the past inhabitants and wondered how I would feel if I found out that somebody had been murdered. So that gave me the start for The Therapist. But for The Prisoner, Amelie just came to me. I saw this woman in the darkened room. I thought that she was probably newly married, that she had been kidnapped quite early on in her marriage, and I began to wonder why she was there, what had led her to being kidnapped. And it was a really interesting journey to have this idea and to work out the story around it. So yeah, it's slightly different from my other books. So this is the cover for The Prisoner, and I really like it because it's very clever. This is not a picture from when Amelie is imprisoned in the darkened room, obviously, but I do like this because we can see her looking out at a swimming pool, and there is a part in the book where she moves into a new house with her new husband Jed, and she has living in this beautiful house. It has a swimming pool, and yet we can see this barred gate. And actually in the book she has access to the swimming pool, she can go into the gardens, and yet there's something about this picture that tells us that she feels trapped. So it's a really interesting cover, I think. So I'm definitely a pantser. I could not plot a book from beginning to end. I don't know how authors managed to do that because I don't know what's going to happen. With Amelie it was great. I started off with her being kidnapped, and then I thought, well, why is she there? She's going to tell me, and I let Amelie tell the story. So, you know, I'm very character-led when I write my books. I like to give them their voice and just see where they take me. So yeah, it's a really interesting process. I could not plot out a book. I don't know what's going to happen in chapter 4 or 5 or chapter 20. I don't really know the ending. I mean, with this one, I did change the ending a few times until I found something that I thought would actually work best. So yes, no, I'm definitely a pantser. If I had to describe Amelie, I would say that she's loyal, courageous, and very resourceful. And if you read my book, you'll see why I chose these 3 words to describe Amelie. So actually, no, I don't really listen to my audiobooks, just as I don't read my books once they've been published. I'm too worried that I'll find things that I would have wanted to change. But I listen to my audiobooks a little bit. I listen to the first chapters, and yes, to hear the actors speaking the words that I wrote is amazing. It brings the scene to life, so that's really good. I just imagine that one day when I'm old and I'm too old to write, I'll sit in a rocking chair with a blanket up to my chin and listen to my audiobooks all the way through and think, gosh, I really wrote those. Yes, I have a very clear idea of how the actors sound when I'm writing. So sometimes it is quite a surprise when I hear actors speaking their words because the actors might have a regional accent and it wasn't something that I was expecting. So that's always a surprise, but always in a positive way, because I think, why not? Because I suppose that my characters speak the way that I do, which is probably wrong because not everybody speaks like me. So yes, but you know, I have a very clear idea of how a man's voice should sound, how low it should be, or how a woman should speak if she speaks fast or if she speaks more slowly and measured. So hearing the actors, you know, their interpretation is always really interesting.